The first time I saw a human cry, I thought we had already won. My name is Velcor Thrain, Senior Tactical Observer for the Kryllian Dominion, and I have witnessed 17 planetary sieges across 9 star systems. I have seen empires crumble. I have watched species surrender their homeworlds without firing a single shot. I have catalogued the precise moment when hope drains from a civilization's collective consciousness, but I had never, in all my rotations of service, seen anything quite like what happened at the Frontier Academy on Kepler Station. Let me back up, because context matters here, and you need to understand just how thoroughly we had miscalculated. The Academy was a joint military training facility, one of those irritating human institutions where they mixed their young warriors with alien cadets in some misguided attempt at fostering galactic cooperation. Adorable, really. The Dominion had been planning the strike for 6 lunar cycles, and our intelligence was flawless. 300 students, 40 instructors, minimal defensive capabilities. The station orbited a gas giant in a backwater system that nobody would miss until it was far too late. Our battle group consisted of 4 cruisers and 2 assault carriers. Overwhelming force for what should have been a quick demonstration of Krillian superiority. Target acquired, Commander Zalthar announced from his position on the bridge. His mandibles clicked together in what passed for a smile among my species. No distress signals detected. Defensive arrays are powering up, but, laughably, they are outdated by at least a decade. I made a notation on my tactical display. The humans had a saying about fish in barrels. This felt appropriate. The first wave of our shock troops deployed at 0600 station time, 50 Krillian enforcers, each standing nearly 3 meters tall, armed with plasma rifles and enough attitude to conquer a small moon. They breached the eastern docking bay with textbook precision, cutting through the exterior bulkhead like it was decorative foil. Inside, chaos erupted immediately. Students scattered, instructors shouted orders, alarms screamed their futile warnings into the recycled air. Standard invasion procedure, really. Establish dominance. Minimize casualties where possible. Round up the survivors for processing. What was not standard was the small human child standing in Corridor 7. I watched through the helmet cam of Enforcer Unit 12 as he advanced down the hallway. The child could not have been more than 4 rotations old, human measurement. She wore a blue dress with some kind of earth animal printed on it, possibly a feline. Her hair was pulled back in 2 asymmetrical bundles that humans call pigtails. She was clutching a stuffed toy that vaguely resembled a Terran bear. And she was crying. Not screaming, mind you. Just crying. Tears rolled down her round little face as she stood there, completely alone, in the middle of an active combat zone. Unit 12. Bypass the juvenile, I transmitted. Focus on viable targets. But Unit 12 had already stopped. Something in his posture changed. I have reviewed the footage approximately 400 times since that day, and I still cannot adequately explain what happened next. The child looked up at him. 3 meters of armored Krillian warrior, plasma rifle charged and ready. And this tiny human, who should have been paralyzed with terror, who should have been running or hiding or doing literally anything except standing there, did something unexpected. She held out her stuffed bear toward him. "Mister," she said, voice cracking with emotion, "can you help me find my daddy? Now, you have to understand something about Krillian biology. We are not an emotional species. Our neural pathways do not process sentiment the way mammals do. We are logical, efficient, evolved for conquest and tactical superiority." But Unit 12 lowered his rifle. 12. "What are you doing?" Zalthar barked over the comm. "Neutralize or bypass, those are your options." The child took a step closer. "My daddy is a teacher here. His name is Marcus Holloway. He has brown hair and he always smells like coffee. Do you know where he is? I want to be clear about something. This was not strategy. This was not some calculated human psychological warfare tactic. This was just a scared little girl looking for her father during the worst moment of her short life." Unit 12's vital signs spiked on my display. Confusion. Hesitation. Something else I could not quite identify. "Daddy was teaching me about badgers yesterday," the child continued, apparently interpreting silence as an invitation to keep talking. The stuffed bear dangled from one small hand. He said badgers are the toughest animals on Earth. They never give up. They protect their families no matter what, even when they are really, really scared. She wiped her nose with the back of her hand. The gesture was so utterly mundane, so divorced from the violence erupting throughout the station, that it created a bizarre moment of cognitive dissonance. That was when Marcus Holloway appeared at the far end of the corridor. He was not impressive by galactic standards. Average human height, maybe 1.8 meters. Brown hair going gray at the temples, wearing civilian clothes and an expression of absolute terror that transformed into something else entirely when he saw his daughter. "Emma," he shouted, sprinting down the hallway with complete disregard for the armed Krillian soldier between them. "Emma, get down." But Emma did not get down. Emma turned toward her father's voice, her face lighting up with pure relief, and started running toward him. Unit 12 could have stopped her. Should have stopped her, according to protocol. Instead, he stepped aside. The child and her father collided in a desperate embrace about 3 meters from my soldier's position. Holloway scooped Emma up, spinning to put his body between her and potential danger, whispering frantic reassurances into her hair. "It is okay, sweetheart. It is okay. Daddy is here. I have got you." And that, right there, was when everything started to go catastrophically wrong for the Kryllian Dominion. Because Marcus Holloway was not just any instructor, he was former military, with the kind of service record that should have been flagged in our intelligence reports but somehow was not. And more importantly, he was a father whose child had just been threatened. Humans have this saying, something about mama bears protecting their cubs. It turns out the papa bears are just as dangerous. But before Holloway could become a problem, we had bigger concerns. The station's communication array suddenly burst to life, broadcasting on every available frequency. The voice that came through was young, female, and absolutely done with our invasion. "Attention, unidentified hostile forces. This is Cadet Pre-Avance, Acting Defense Coordinator. You have violated Frontier Academy sovereign space, threatened civilian and military personnel, and generally ruined what was shaping up to be a pretty decent morning." I pulled up her file. 19 standard years old. Top of her tactical class. Human. Of course. You have 30 seconds to withdraw your forces and retreat beyond the system boundary, Vance continued. Her tone suggested she was reading from a rather boring instruction manual. Failure to comply will result in defensive countermeasures. And trust me when I say this, you really do not want defensive countermeasures. Zalthar laughed, an unpleasant chittering sound. Defensive countermeasures. Their weapon systems are antiques. Scan their arsenal. Our tactical officer complied. Confirming minimal offensive capabilities, Commander. Standard point defense guns, 2 railgun emplacements, 1 outdated missile battery. Nothing that poses a credible threat. Respond to the cadet, Zalthar ordered. Inform her that resistance is futile and surrender is her only option. I opened a channel. Cadet Vance. This is Senior Observer Velcor Thrain of the Kryllian Dominion. Your facility is surrounded. Your defenses are inadequate. Stand down and prepare for occupation. There was a pause. Then, impossibly, I heard her laugh. Yeah, see, here is the thing. Vance's voice took on a different quality, something sharper. You ran your scans. You checked our official weapons inventory. Very thorough. Gold star for reconnaissance. But you know what you did not check? Enlighten me, I said, already suspecting I would not enjoy the answer. The machine shop. 2 words. Utterly innocuous on their surface. Elaborate. Zalthar demanded. So, funny story. About 6 months ago, one of our engineering instructors, a guy named Jake Morrison, got bored. And when human engineers get bored, we do not just sit around. We tinker. We build. We create unholy abominations of destructive capability from whatever spare parts happen to be lying around. My secondary stomach clenched. I knew where this was going. Morrison turned our machine shop into a fabrication facility. Vance continued, her tone now positively cheerful. We have got a railgun that can punch through your cruiser shielding. We have got proximity mines. We have got something Morrison calls the orbital friendship negator, which is just a terrifying name for a terrifying weapon. And we have got about 200 very angry cadets who are absolutely ready to show you exactly why humanity earned its reputation during the sector wars. Zalthar's mandibles snapped shut. You are bluffing. Am I? Vance asked. Tell you what. Keep advancing. Find out. I dare you. That was when the first explosion rocked our lead cruiser. Whatever they had cobbled together in that machine shop, it worked beautifully. The blast took out our forward shielding and sent the ship spinning into a degraded orbit. Warning klaxons screamed across every channel. All units, combat alert, Zalthar roared. Return fire, neutralize their weapons. But the humans had already moved their equipment. The railgun signature we locked onto was broadcasting from an empty classroom. The mines were drifting in patterns our sensors could not predict. And somewhere in the chaos, Cadet Priya Vance was coordinating a defense that had no business being this effective. Back in Corridor 7, Marcus Holloway was having his own revelation. He set Emma down carefully, looking her directly in the eyes. "Sweetheart, I need you to do exactly what I say. Can you do that for Daddy?" Emma nodded, still clutching her bear. "I need you to run to Instructor Williams' classroom. You remember where that is? Down 2 levels, 3rd door on the left. The one with all the star charts. But Daddy..." "I know, baby. But Daddy has to go help the other students. And I need you to be brave, like we talked about. Like the honey badgers, remember? Something passed between them. Some unspoken understanding that transcended words." Emma stood up straighter, wiped her tears, looked at Unit 12 with an expression that somehow contained both fear and determination. "Be careful, mister," she said to the Krillian soldier. "My daddy is really good at his job." Then she turned and ran, her small footsteps echoing down the corridor. Holloway watched her go, his entire body language shifting. When he turned back to face Unit 12, he was no longer just a frightened parent. He was something else entirely. "You know what the funny thing is?" Holloway said, his voice quiet and absolutely terrifying in its calmness. "I retired from active service specifically to avoid this kind of situation. Took a teaching job because I wanted peace. Wanted to give my daughter a stable life. Wanted to pretend that the universe was not full of species who think they can just take whatever they want." He took a step forward. Unit 12, to his credit, raised his rifle. "But here is the thing about humans," Holloway continued. "We are adaptable. We are creative. And when you threaten our children, we become the absolute worst nightmare you never wanted to encounter." What happened next occurred too quickly for standard recording speed. Holloway moved with the kind of precision that comes from years of combat training. He disarmed Unit 12 in approximately 2.3 seconds, using techniques that I later learned were from something called Krav Maga, a human martial art specifically designed for maximum efficiency. Unit 12 went down hard. His armor absorbed most of the impact, but Holloway had already acquired his weapon. "All Academy personnel, this is Marcus Holloway," he transmitted on the open channel. "The invasion force has made a critical error. They have come to our home. They have threatened our students. They have made my daughter cry." He chambered a round in the plasma rifle with practiced ease. "Time to show them what happens when you poke the honey badger." And that, as they say, was when things really got interesting. Retry Claude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses. I need to explain something about human psychology that our xenobiologists completely failed to account for. When most species encounter overwhelming force, their survival instinct triggers retreat, fight or flight, with heavy emphasis on the flight part. Self-preservation is the foundation of intelligent life across the galaxy. Humans have that same instinct. They just interpret it differently. Instead of running away from danger, they run toward whatever they are trying to protect. Their survival mechanism inverts. It becomes external rather than internal. Threat assessment shifts from self to tribe. And nothing, absolutely nothing in this universe, triggers that response quite like threatening their offspring. We had not invaded a military installation. We had walked into a nursery full of very angry primates who knew how to build weapons. "All units, converge on the central atrium," Zalthar ordered, his composure fracturing around the edges. "Establish a defensive perimeter. We regroup and reassess." Excellent plan, in theory. In practice, we were herding ourselves into a kill box. The Academy's central atrium was a massive open space, 3 stories tall, with overlooks on every level and exactly one primary entrance. Architectural beauty. Tactical nightmare. Our forces filed in, expecting to fortify our position. What we found instead was Cadet Priya Vance standing on the 3rd-floor balcony with a smile that could cut through hull plating. "Welcome, gentlemen," she announced. her voice amplified through the station's intercom. "Thank you for gathering in one convenient location. Really saves us the trouble of hunting you down individually." 50 Krillian enforcers raised their weapons simultaneously. "Before you do something aggressively stupid," Vance continued, "I should mention that this entire atrium is now surrounded by those proximity mines I mentioned earlier. They are linked to a deadman switch that I am currently holding. If my heart rate drops below 60 beats per minute, or spikes above 140, or if I get vaporized by plasma fire, well, this becomes a very different kind of party." Zalthar's tactical display confirmed it. Mine signatures everywhere, nestled into ventilation shafts, tucked behind support beams, probably hidden in decorative planters for all I knew. "You would kill yourself in the explosion," Zalthar transmitted. "Probably," Vance agreed cheerfully. "But here is the beautiful part. I am 19 years old. My prefrontal cortex is not even fully developed yet. I have questionable impulse control and a deeply underdeveloped sense of my own mortality. You want to test whether I am bluffing? Go ahead. See what happens." Nobody moved. "That's what I thought," Vance said. "Now, here are your options. Option 1, you surrender immediately, and we process you through proper military detention protocols. Boring, but you get to live. Option 2, you keep fighting, and we demonstrate exactly why humanity has a reputation for creative violence. There is no option where we simply leave?" I transmitted, already knowing the answer. "Oh, Observer Thrain." Vance's tone brightened with recognition. "I have been reading your file. Very impressive career. 17 planetary sieges. Must feel pretty bad that number 18 is going to end with you getting your mandibles handed to you by a bunch of teenagers. One of our enforcers, Unit 27, made the catastrophically poor decision to test her resolve." He raised his rifle toward the balcony. Vance did not activate the mines. She did not need to. Marcus Holloway emerged from a side corridor and put 3 plasma rounds into 27's armor joints before the Krillian could complete his targeting sequence. The enforcer went down in a shower of sparks and very colorful Krillian cursing. "I did mention my dad, right?" Vance called down. "Former Special Operations, retired. Emphasis on former. Turns out you can take the soldier out of the military, but you cannot take the military out of the dad whose kid goes to school here." More instructors appeared. Dozens of them, materializing from corridors and classrooms like particularly vindictive spirits. They were not all human. I spotted a Dravik demolitions expert, 2 Antarian marksmen, even a Velusian combat medic who looked ready to violate several sections of the Geneva Conventions that technically did not apply in space anyway. But the humans, oh, the humans were the ones you had to watch. There was Jake Morrison, the engineer Vance had mentioned, carrying what appeared to be a jury-rigged energy cannon built from parts that absolutely should not work together but somehow did. Next to him stood Keiko Tanaka, a hand-to-hand combat instructor, who moved with the fluid grace of someone who had forgotten more about breaking bones than most species ever learned. And behind them, filing into the atrium from every available entrance, came the students. Not just the military cadets. Everyone. The linguists brought improvised flashbang grenades. The medical students carried sedative injectors that could drop a Krillian in under 5 seconds. The engineering students had apparently spent the last 20 minutes turning maintenance equipment into weapons that violated multiple interstellar treaties. One kid, could not have been older than 16, was holding something that looked like a modified plasma torch welded to a fire suppression tank. When he saw me looking, he grinned and gave a little wave. "Flamethrower," Vance explained helpfully. "That's Tommy Briggs, straight A student, volunteers at the local animal shelter, also apparently a budding war criminal. We are very proud." Zalthar's mandibles were clicking rapidly now, a sign of severe agitation among our kind. "This is insane. You are students, children. You cannot possibly." "Cannot possibly what?" Holloway interrupted, stepping fully into the atrium, with his acquired rifle held in a ready position. "Cannot possibly defend ourselves? Cannot possibly coordinate an effective resistance against an invasion force? Cannot possibly be willing to die protecting this place?" He looked around at the assembled students and instructors, at the improvised weapons and determined faces, at his daughter's stuffed bear, which someone had apparently retrieved and placed on a central table, like a tiny fabric monument to everything they were fighting for. You came here expecting easy targets, Holloway continued. Soft victims. You ran your scans and saw outdated weapons and assumed that meant we were helpless. But you missed the most important detail. Which is? I asked, genuinely curious despite our deteriorating tactical position. This is a school, Holloway said simply. We teach people how to think, how to adapt, how to take limited resources and create solutions to impossible problems. You brought guns to its engineering final exam. Morrison hefted his improvised cannon. He's right. This whole invasion is basically just a really intense pop quiz. And we've been studying. Here's what happens next, Vance announced. Your commander is going to order a full retreat. Your forces are going to walk very slowly and carefully out of this station without harming anyone else. You are going to leave behind your weapons. And then you are going to transmit a message to every Krillian outpost in this sector, explaining that Frontier Academy is permanently off limits. And if we refuse? Zalthar demanded. Vance's smile vanished. Then we stop being polite. What happened next occurred in less time than it takes to describe. One of our enforcers, operating on panic rather than orders, fired toward the student section. The plasma bolt went wide, scorching a wall panel. Holloway dropped him before his weapon could recharge. Then everything happened at once. Tommy Briggs unleashed his flamethrower toward the ceiling, creating a wall of fire that separated the Krillian forces. The Antarian marksmen started systematically disabling enforcer armor at the joints. Morrison's cannon discharged with a sound like reality tearing, taking out 3 soldiers in one shot, but the most devastating attack came from Keiko Tanaka, who simply walked toward the nearest Krillian enforcer with empty hands and proceeded to dismantle him using techniques that were simultaneously beautiful and horrifying. She moved like water, like wind, like something that could not possibly be stopped by mere armor and size advantage. Within 90 seconds, half our ground force was neutralized. Not killed, I should note. The humans were being very careful about that. Disarmed, disabled, rendered combat ineffective, but alive. It was humiliating. It was terrifying. It was tactically brilliant. Commander, I transmitted to Zalthar. Recommend immediate withdrawal. This engagement is unwinnable. For once, Zalthar's pride gave way to survival instinct. All units, fall back to ships. Authorization code Omega-7. Full retreat. Our remaining enforcers withdrew in as orderly a fashion as possible while being herded by armed teenagers. The humans did not pursue. They simply watched, weapons ready, as we scrambled back to our vessels with whatever dignity we could salvage. Emma Holloway emerged from Instructor Williams' classroom as the last enforcer departed. She was still carrying her bear, still had those absurd pigtails, still looked like she should be playing with toys rather than witnessing military operations. She walked up to her father, who immediately knelt and wrapped her in a fierce embrace. Did we win, Daddy? Yeah, sweetheart, we won. Because we were like honey badgers? Holloway laughed, a sound that contained relief and exhaustion and fierce parental love. Exactly like honey badgers, tough and brave, and we protected our family. Emma thought about this. Then she looked at the retreating Krillian forces. Will they come back? No, baby. I don't think they will. She was right, of course. We did not come back, ever. From orbit, I watched as our battle group limped away from Kepler Station, damaged and defeated, and fundamentally changed by what we had experienced. The child's question haunted me. Will they come back? I transmitted my final report to Dominion Command 3 days later, 27 pages of tactical analysis, equipment assessments, and strategic recommendations. The conclusion was stark and unambiguous. Human defensive capabilities are severely underestimated in current intelligence models. Recommend immediate reclassification of Frontier Academy and similar installations from soft targets to extreme threat level. Further recommend avoiding engagement with human civilian populations, particularly those with familial bonds to defend. Their tactical unpredictability, combined with emotional motivation, creates combat scenarios with unacceptable casualty projections. What I did not include in the official report, but recorded in my personal logs, was this observation. We thought we understood humans. We had fought them during the sector wars. We had studied their military tactics, their weapons development, their strategic doctrines. We knew they were dangerous. What we failed to comprehend was that humans are not most dangerous when they are attacking. They are most dangerous when they are protecting something they love. The invasion force, the superior numbers, the advanced technology, none of that mattered once we threatened their children, because a human defending their young does not calculate odds, does not assess risk versus reward, does not consider strategic withdrawal. A human defending their young becomes something older than civilization, something that existed before they built cities or wrote laws or explored the stars. They become the mammal that looked at the predator and decided that dying was acceptable if it meant the children survived. We call it irrational. They call it love. And honestly, after witnessing what happened at Frontier Academy, after seeing what a frightened father and some creative teenagers could accomplish with improvised weapons and sheer determination, I think the humans might be right. 3 months after the failed invasion, I left military service, retired to a quiet colony world where I now teach comparative xenobiology. My students often ask about my time with the Dominion, about the campaigns I witnessed, the battles I survived. Sometimes I tell them about Kepler Station, about the little girl with the stuffed bear, about the honey badgers, and I always end with the same warning, the same lesson I learned at such considerable cost. Never threaten a human child. Not because the humans will destroy you, though they absolutely will, but because in doing so, you will teach them exactly how terrifying they can become. And that knowledge, once awakened, never goes dormant again. Emma Holloway is 12 years old now. I have kept track. In my own quiet way. She is enrolled at the academy, following in her father's footsteps, top marks in tactical theory, excels at creative problem solving, wants to be a combat engineer when she grows up. I suspect she will be very, very good at it. Somewhere in the Dominion archives, there is a single-line entry in the restricted database. Target classification for Frontier Academy on Kepler Station. It reads simply, Honey Badger Nest. Do not engage. We finally learned what that phrase means, what those small, fierce earth creatures represent in human culture. They are not the biggest, not the strongest, not the most technologically advanced, but they will absolutely ruin your day if you threaten their family. And now, thanks to one very bad decision and one little girl's tears, every species in the Kryllian Dominion knows exactly what happens when you make a human parent choose between peace and protecting their child. They choose the child. Every single time. Without hesitation. Without mercy. Without surrender. We thought we were attacking a school. We were wrong. We attacked a family. And families, human families especially, fight back with everything they have. The Dominion has not attempted another operation against human civilian installations. The policy now is simple and absolute. Avoid engagement. Maintain distance. Respect boundaries. Because we learned, in the most expensive way possible, that humans have a saying which proves terrifyingly accurate. Do not poke the bear. And definitely, under no circumstances whatsoever, do not make their children cry. The honey badger will shatter your lines every single time.